I walked calmly down the street. The cool, slightly humid night air filled my lungs, providing a feeling of calm and renewal. Bosley, my faithful four-legged companion, trotted along beside me with the same joy as always, wagging his tail as if he knew this was our favorite moment of the day. Sometimes I wondered if he liked me more than I liked him, because the bond we had was something unique, built over years of hiking and adventures. I knew that route like the back of my hand. I had been there hundreds of times, maybe even thousands. The routine, however, was suddenly interrupted, in a way that made my heart race and my breathing change rhythm. As I was returning home, something strange caught my attention. My gaze fixed on the second-floor window, the one that overlooked the room that Maria and I used to share, a space that now held old and even slightly painful memories. For a brief moment, I thought I saw something move behind the curtain, a shadow that seemed to belong to no one I knew. I stopped halfway, staring at the window with a mixture of curiosity and uneasiness. There was no reason for anyone to be there. I hadn't been in that room for years, since life took different directions, and that space became just a vestige of the past. Just thinking about the possibility of a stranger invading my home made my blood start to boil. Heat rising to my face as my mind imagined every possible scenario. Wasting no time, I ran inside, through the front door and up the stairs 2 at a time, my heart racing as if it wanted to jump out of my chest. The silence in the house seemed thicker than usual, and each step echoed off the walls, increasing the feeling of urgency and anxiety. The room was exactly as I left it, every detail in place, every dusty piece of furniture just the way I remembered it. The heavy curtains were still drawn, the closet remained locked, and the antique bed was covered with a sheet, yellowed with age. There was no sign of anything out of place, nothing to indicate the presence of another person. I searched every corner, opened drawers, looked under the bed, and even in the back of the closet, but I found nothing that explained what I had seen the night before. Even so, fear continued to gnaw inside, a feeling that was mixed with a good dose of anger, as if I were being the target of some kind of cruel and invisible game. As I stood there, doubt began to gnaw at me. I thought maybe I had imagined things that weren't really there, that the darkness and loneliness had played tricks on my senses. I spent a long time standing in that room, staring at the antique furniture and feeling a little foolish for having rushed there, only to discover that everything seemed normal. Even so, I couldn't get rid of that strange feeling, a kind of heaviness in the air, as if the environment still held a secret that it refused to reveal. The next night, I woke up with a start to the sound of Bosley growling. He was a good dog, a loyal companion who rarely barked for no reason. When he growled, there was definitely something wrong. I sat on the bed, with my ears open, and tried to hear what had aroused his suspicion. It was then that I heard a creak coming from above, directly from the second floor. It could just be the noise of an old house, accustomed to expanding and contracting with changes in temperature, but in the silence of the early morning, it sounded disturbingly like footsteps, as if someone were walking cautiously across the floor of an abandoned room, directly across the street, above mine. I briefly considered reaching for the hunting rifle that was stored in the downstairs closet. It was a wise choice after all. I didn't know what I might find, but for some reason I decided to check with just a flashlight in hand. I climbed the stairs in silence, my heart hammering in my chest as each step creaked beneath my feet. When I got to the room, it looked as untouched as the night before, with no evidence of anything or anyone that might have been there. But at that point, anxiety had already completely infiltrated me, leaving me restless, with the clear impression that something, even if invisible, was out of place. Something, somehow, was definitely not right. Another night passed, and the feeling of discomfort only intensified. This time, when I went downstairs to drink a glass of water in the middle of the night, I found the kitchen lights on. I'm pretty sure I deleted them before going to sleep, like I always did. That sight made me shiver from head to toe. It was no longer a matter of doubt or paranoia. Someone was, in fact, entering my house, moving silently through the night while I slept. Feeling fear taking over, I called the police. They arrived quickly, searched every room, and did a thorough search around the property. They found nothing out of the ordinary. No clues, no signs of forced entry. They were kind enough, they said to call if I needed anything, but I could tell from their expressions that they didn't really believe my story, as if they thought I was just another lonely man being haunted by his own memories. The worst night of all came later. One I could never erase from my memory. Unable to sleep a wink, I tossed and turned in bed with a heavy heart and racing thoughts. Something told me I needed to check the room one more time, as if an invisible force was urging me to climb those stairs and confront whatever was happening there. Maybe it was the hope that, realizing again that nothing had changed, I could finally calm my mind and rest. But when I opened the door, I was struck by a sight that left me completely paralyzed. Clothes were scattered across the floor, thrown in a chaotic manner, and I recognized them immediately. They were Maria's clothes, the ones I had carefully stored in a box after she died, locked in the bedroom closet as a kind of silent tribute to our past. The sight of them scattered across the floor made me feel a lump in my throat and a chill run down my spine. Who had taken them from there? Who had the right to touch the memories I kept so guarded? And that's when I saw her. A woman, standing in the doorway, staring at me. The dim light in the hallway didn't allow me to see her face clearly, but I could tell she wasn't Maria. His silhouette was shorter, his posture was rigid, and there was something about his presence that caused me an overwhelming fear, a feeling of threat that went beyond the rational. In a rush of pure adrenaline, without thinking twice, I ran towards her, determined to confront whoever it was. But she turned, and with an agility that seemed superhuman, ran up the stairs and threw herself out of the house. I ran after her, my bare feet hitting the ground hard, but when I got outside, I was greeted only by the silence of the night. She had disappeared like a shadow, leaving no trace, disappearing into the darkness as if she had never been there. I looked around, panting and shaking, but there was no sign of her anywhere, and it was at that moment that certainty hit me hard. Something terribly wrong was happening, something I couldn't explain, but that I knew, deep down, was much more sinister than a simple invasion. After that disturbing encounter, the nights became a true torment, marked by dread and constant restlessness. Every little noise made me wake up with a start, like the creaking of floorboards or the rustling of leaves outside. I started sleeping with the hunting rifle next to the bed, always within reach, and the flashlight rested on the nightstand, ready to be used. Every second of silence seemed charged with tension, as if something was about to happen. I thought several times about calling my brother and asking him to come spend a few days with me, but pride and the way we were raised, to face our problems head-on and resolve things on our own, prevented me from seeking help. What I didn't know was that the nightmare was actually far from over. One of those nights, when insomnia was already becoming my constant companion, I noticed something that made my heart freeze in my chest. There was a figure standing in the yard, standing in the shadows of the trees, watching me through my bedroom window. It was her again. The same silhouette I had seen in the room, the same sinister presence that had been haunting my thoughts. His outline was partially illuminated by the dim light of the moon, enough for me to realize that he was staring at me with a disturbing intensity. Without hesitation, I jumped out of bed and grabbed the rifle. Bosley, always alert, followed me immediately, growling as if he also sensed my danger. I ran outside, through the front door and down the porch steps quickly, my feet barely touching the ground. The silhouette was still there, motionless in the moonlight, as if it wanted to be seen, as if its intention was to torment and challenge me. With my heart beating wildly, I fired a few shots into the air, hoping to scare her away or at least intimidate her. The strategy seemed to work. She turned sharply and disappeared into the darkness, disappearing between the trees with disconcerting agility, as if she were part of the night itself. But instead of feeling relief, a feeling of emptiness and despair came over me. That figure wasn't just any invader. She seemed to be an evil entity, a shadow with dark intentions that had infiltrated my life and was consuming me little by little. It was as if I was being stalked by a deranged stranger, someone who knew exactly how to awaken my deepest fears and who had no intention of leaving anytime soon. The threat was not just physical. It was eating me up inside, turning every quiet moment into an endless vigil. As the weeks passed, fear became a constant companion, an almost palpable presence that clung to my every thought. I lived in a permanent state of alert, my nerves on edge, as if at any moment a woman could return to finish whatever she had started. Each twilight brought increasing tension, and as the sky darkened, the certainty that something sinister was approaching grew. I found myself looking at the window frequently, hoping to see a sign of movement outside, trying to anticipate the return of the figure that had been haunting me. One night, as I was sitting in the living room, trying to force my mind away from anything else, I saw the silhouette again. This time she was further away, standing at the edge of the yard, almost at the line where the dim porch light met the deep darkness of the trees. He didn't move, he just watched me from afar, as if he were studying my every movement. The feeling of being watched was unbearable, as if her eyes were piercing my soul. I don't know what this woman wanted. She never got close enough to reveal her true identity, never left clues as to her intentions. All it did was appear and disappear, like a ghost determined to destabilize my life. But I was prepared to face her if necessary. The rifle was always loaded and within my reach, and Bosley, faithful and vigilant, was always at my side, sniffing the air as if he also sensed the threatening presence that stalked the house. I was willing to do whatever was necessary to protect my home, and most importantly, my sanity. Still, I know that this kind of life marked by constant vigilance and anxiety is not sustainable for long. The feeling of exhaustion begins to take its toll, and there are nights when the tiredness is so great that my eyes burn with exhaustion, but I can't sleep because fear keeps me awake. Still, for now, I move on. I still have Bosley at my side, watching for the slightest sign of danger, every muscle tense, every sense on alert. If something else happens, and I'm sure this isn't over, I'll be ready to respond. Whatever it is I need to face. She can come back as many times as she wants, but as long as I'm standing, I won't give in to the terror.